Hi guys, today we're creating interesting, fun effects, some unique textures, just doing what we can to make our watercolor paintings extra special using the paint itself or with a little help from our friends. Here we go. And the first and most known watercolor technique I have for you is the blooms. I talk about them all the time. It's a wet technique where you have your paint nice and wet. So here we have it, a nice little blob of wet paint. And now what we do is we get our brush filled with water and we just add some more water, nice little water blobs, just like so. So can you see the water blobs? These look real cute. Or you get another little blob of paint. Ooh, this is a real strong one. That blob of paint, just like that, and the paint is all nice and wet. And then we just go ahead and pick another color and we bloom it like that. Okay, so for our second technique, I guess it's kind of similar but not quite. So we just go ahead and paint our first layer, still using the exact same color. Nice and pretty. Here we go. And then we're just going to add a few drops of alcohol, and let me pick a pencil I am not particularly a fan of because I don't want to ruin my pencil. So what we do here is we get a pencil or a pipette if you have one with alcohol, and we just do it like that. Look at that. Isn't that cute? I just love the rings it forms around it. And alcohol is all you will need. Okay, next is one that if you've watched my latest videos, you know I'm a big fan of, which is splattering. You've seen me do it, but we haven't really talked about the several ways you can splatter your painting and yourself with some paint. Okay, so you just fill your brush with paint and a lot of water, and then tap it into something. Like a different brush, for example, or like a pen, or even your fingers, It's just really an easy way to do this. And you can also get a brush that has some really sharp bristles like this one. And then you just, let me pick another color. Just get your brush filled with color and you just spritz it like that. These are much more subtle, they are tinier and they're easier to control, but you get your finger dirty. Okay, let me just get all of this clean and I'll be right back. Now this one is probably one of the simplest with awesome effects. You just get your trusted water bottle and spritz your paper with some water, and the idea here isn't soaking the paper, it's actually to create a nice splatter effect with the water before adding on the paint and see where it goes. So here we go, we just do a nice little splatter, maybe, okay, like this. We don't want to overdo it, of course. Should we keep it the same color? No, let's change it. And then we just dab it and see where the paint goes. These ones aren't working, but these are really, really cute. Yeah, just watch it come to life just by spritzing with a lot of water. And another way you can get a splatter, and I've mentioned this in a video a while back that you can check out after this one, of course, is getting like a plastic bag or a plastic sheet or whatever. Here's our plastic bag. We spray it with some water. Don't know if you can see all the bubbles, but it's looking really cute. And then we just go ahead and drop some paint onto all of this, like this, and then maybe go in a different color just like we did with that one, like this. Okay, so now what we do is we turn this plastic onto the paper. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go, like this, and then you press it just a little bit, and then we remove the plastic. come on guys, that is a gorgeous splatter, isn't it? I love it. So simple, so simple. I just love that. And now you can like redirect your paint. You can move it around if it's like mobile like mine. If it's not, you know, taped onto your table. And then you just wait for it to dry. I mean, it is as simple and as stunning as it gets. Okay, next, and this is our fifth technique, I think, is using salt. Yes, coarse salt brings you different results than fine salt or table salt, but it will look cool either way, okay? So we are going to try and make a nice little circle. Just like that. Oh, love this green. And we can make sure it's nice and wet. And then what we do is we add on the salt. Now I am using coarse salt. I'm trying to pick different sizes here, but you know, this isn't exactly science. And now all we have to do is wait for it to dry and then remove it. And I will show you in a bit what it looks like once we do that, okay? I bet it will just look so pretty with such a cool texture. Can't wait to see it. Now, let's try it. Let's try the exact same technique with some rice. Yeah, let's do that. So, blue this time. We're going for another little circle. Oh, this one isn't very circular. Okay, look at the vibrancy in these colors. And I'm actually using, for those of you who want to know, the Schminke Academy set, the one I bought off AliExpress. Do you remember this one? You can watch the review, oops, and you can watch the review and the comparison with my original Schminke Academy set in a link I'll leave in the description so you can watch later. This is still wet. Oh, I've started talking, so I'm not really sure. Oops. Okay, so this is still nice and wet. This is important. That bit is totally important. And we just add on some little grains of rice. Just like that. And no, the type of rice is not important here. The cheapest, I would say, considering we are not going to eat it. And we don't want to be wasteful. Okay, for this next one, our seventh texture, we're going to need some plastic wrap, you know, just a little bit, all scrunched up. You know, just a little bit that we are going to cut. Just a tiny little bit. And then we are going to scrunch it all up. But before doing that, yeah, just a tiny little bit will do because we're doing small circles. And I guess we will keep, well, maybe we'll make a square, who knows? We're going wild now. So yeah, let's just add, oops, a little bit of salt, we don't want that. So we just add on a blob of wet paint right here. And I'm only using a tiny little bit of plastic because, you know, it's a really tiny little square. While it's still wet, we add on our plastic just like so. And the more scrunched up, the better, okay? You can move it around and you scrunch it up, do whatever you want until you're happy with your result, and now we just leave it to dry. And you can try this with foil too, and again, we'll just have to wait for the final results in just a little bit. Now, one thing I use all the time for making clouds and different shading and all that is some paper towel. If it's a textured one, that's actually an added bonus, I guess, because you can add that pattern onto your painting. But you know, just dabbing it with paper will create a really cute and special texture that's very handy to know. Let's see what we do. So we want a really, really light blue. Let's, like here. A nice little sky, just like that. And then you just take a little bit of your paper. You can even scrunch it up if you want, but I usually just, yeah, let's try and scrunch it up. You can like scrunch it up like I'm doing right here, and then you just dab it. Just like that. Okay, when it's usually a larger portion, a larger painting, it looks even better. I'm trying to do my best in a very tiny, tiny square or rectangle, but you get the gist. You just keep dabbing it until you get the shape you want and the shading you want, and you're done. It's that simple. This next one doesn't start with paint. It starts with getting a wax candle and drawing with it whatever we want. And you can also use white crayons if you like. And what happens is, once, let's make, I don't know, a wave maybe. This candle is old and dirty. Sorry about that, it was the only one I had. So what happens is, you do that, and then when you go over to paint, it just doesn't work. It's like magic. No matter how much I try, how many layers I use, doesn't matter the color of the paint. And this is a pretty old candle, so imagine what will happen with a new one. It just doesn't paint over it. It is magic. I just love doing that. Imagine, you know, an afternoon with your kids and you're painting and you give them some white crayons or maybe even a candle and they just draw whatever they want, and then you go with the paint and you whoosh, and they're painting and what they drew gets visible. It's perfect. I just love this one. It's like a magic trick, it really is. Okay guys, for this next one we will need a sponge. It doesn't really matter where it comes from, you know, if it's one of those sponges for washing dishes or if you happen to use sponges on your crafts. You can even use the sponge that comes with some watercolor sets. Do you have one of those? You can totally use that sponge, okay? Now we can use a sponge with watercolors in several ways. It's great to like dab your pencil and remove, you know, the extra water. You can, for example, wet it and then use it to wet your paper before adding the paint. If you're going for wet on wet, it will work really good. And then as far as textures go, you can just use it to dab the paint, you know, much like we did with the paper towel for like clouds and stuff like that. So let me just show you how that works. Just have a layer of wet paint, wet indigo, my favorite, and then you just get our sponge and we just dab it just like we did. And see, we get a completely different, completely lovely texture. It's not as visible on, you know, cold pressed rough paper as it would be in fine, but I think you get the picture. It really is a very soft, very subtle texture difference, which I absolutely love. Now you can also add, let's say we add a layer of green, and I'm using green because this is what I usually use for my trees. I love it. So here we have a little bit of green, like a tree canopy or something like that. We just do it like this, and then we use it to dab over the lighter green. Just like that, you get a second unique, very awesome layer that is subtle, but at the same time it has loads of texture and it just works really good. And if you wait for it to dry, and I think we're going to do that, let's do this again, but now we wait for it to dry because then you can really see the effects. And now okay, we have waited for it to dry a little bit. I don't think it's totally dry, but it's definitely drier than the first one we made. And now we just do it again. We're going to dab our sponge in the darker color and then just dab it. See, that way it doesn't really blend, which is totally different from the first one, which was this one. This one blended because, you know, the paint was still wet. This one, since the paint is no longer wet, you can really see the effects of the dabbing you're doing, and it is awesome for trees. You know, you can do this in as many layers as you want, from lighter to darker, of course, and you can use as many tree shades as you want, or for a bush or whatever it is. It looks awesome, guys, awesome. You know, doing this in such a tiny space is completely different, but trust me, you will love the end result, okay? And you know, like this, it works like a charm, but you don't really have to do it on top of paint. You can just dab it and just use it like that, and it will look really cool. It's a really cool texture, a really subtle texture. It just works really good. Just dab it, and there you have it. A really nice, really subtle texture that's kind of like splattering, but not really, and it works really good. I love using my sponge to do these kinds of work because you just get such a natural, organic texture, you know. I just love it. Okay guys, I think it's time for us to go back a little bit. Let's turn this around again and see how, yeah, I think this is dry. Okay, so for the salt, it's nice and dry, so we just remove, oh, it's not completely, just remove it, just like that. Yeah, it's not totally dry, it's pretty dry, I guess, but you know, I'm making a mess of it. Because yeah, the paint is dry, but the salt grains are not. I should probably just wait it out a little bit more, but for texture's sake, you can see how this goes, right? Now, for the rice, same thing, completely different texture though. Oh, still wet, oh my God, okay, you get the picture. It's like you're looking into a microscope and watching, like, you know, bugs or microbes or something like that. So you see two completely different textures that will look just so lovely in big surfaces. Now for our plastic, look at that. These are nice and dry, and you can see all our splatters, the two different ways of making splatters. I love them both. This one tends to blend a little bit more. These you can still see the original colors. Over here, you know, the alcohol looks cute. The tiny little splatters, I think I'm going to be using a lot of them from now on because I really like it. And you know, the blooms, the blooms that we've done so often. And then, you know, you get this one, the different textures. The candle works lovely. The paper towel dab, the sponge dab, and then of course, these two. And here we go, guys, 11 different techniques. You know, it was supposed to be 10, but I always get a little bit carried away because I just have so much fun with these. So 11 different techniques any beginner level watercolor painter can do, just to add some textures and some, you know, special effects to your watercolor paintings. They may look, I think they look pretty easy, but if you feel intimidated by any of these, just give them a try. They are much easier than they look, and they will add just so much more value to your paintings. You know, once you get the hang of it, you will be having so much fun. You know I did. Thank you for doing this with me, and I hope to see you really soon. Bye bye.